right, good evening. Thank you so much for having me. It's such an honor to be on share this stage with my esteemed colleagues and hear about the amazing work that you're all doing. It's hard to follow a presentation like that from Dr. Israel, and hopefully this is along the same vein, but it is not as upbeat, but it's gonna get there. So bear with me. Okay, so I'm going to speak to you about the current project I'm involved with in a school district here along the Central Coast of California. It's the Black High School Student Experience Photo Voice Project, and we received funding from the Academic Senate, the Fund for Santa Barbara, as well as the McCune Foundation. Wait, how does this work? Down, thank you. Okay. So the purpose of this project, it came out of a need from a local branch of the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People, the NAACP, or they say NAACP these days. And they partnered with GGSE, me, to address concerns for Black students attending high schools in a Central Coast school district. That is a pseudonym, so we'll call it CCSD. The purpose of this project was to understand the social, emotional, and academic needs of Black high school students in this district, and through a youth participatory action research framework, the method of photo voice was used to identify and address issues specific to the Black experience. I must have taken the slide out, but there were a lot of incidents that were happening in the school district, including there was a basketball game where someone was making monkey sounds at a Black high school student every time at the free throw line. And so different type of racialized hostile events were coming up. And so then that's why this project came about. It was from a need. Oops. So the research questions were, how do Black identifying high school students perceive their social, emotional, and academic needs? And how, if at all, does race and Blackness in particular shape students' schooling experiences? So just to give a little context before we keep going, in California, there's about 5% of Black students in public schools. And in this district, it is predominantly Latinx at 60%, and then 2% Black African American. I think there's about roughly like 19% white students. Black students are disproportionately underperforming compared to their counterparts, and disproportionately disciplined. That's in this district, that's statewide, that's also nationwide. And often the literature, the research around Black students is often conflated with Black and Latinx students, or they're called students of color, but they're not necessarily having the same experience. So what is photo voice? If you haven't heard of it, it is a research method coming from originally Wang and Burris. And it is designed to give a voice or amplify voices for those who may not be in positions of power. So they take a camera and they take photos that represent their experiences. And so it's sort of an art-based research method where you are looking at photos to deepen your understanding, the researcher's understanding of what the issue is. And so we did the photo voice, we did several rounds of that, and then focus groups to talk about that. And it is action-oriented. And so we want to promote this critical dialogue about what's going on and also help promote policy to change things for the better. So these are some of the students. Like I said, we met several times and at 2 high schools in the district. And yeah, this is what happened. So overall, they were experiencing anti-Blackness. That was their major challenge. How were they experiencing it? They're experiencing racist experience with their school personnel, so adults had racist experiences with peers, other students around them. They didn't feel like they had much support, but throughout this project, they also created recommendations. So I will just give you a snapshot of what kinds of things they were talking about. So what were some of the racist experiences with school personnel? Students felt disproportionately disciplined, and in the data that's true that they were. And they also felt exclusion from opportunities because based on what they believed was bias and prejudice. So one student said, oh, this school adult's always like accusing me of doing drugs. Like I was in the bathroom, using the bathroom. There'll be kids in there and actually like doing that stuff, and I'm not like one of those kids. And like everybody cleared out. I was like one of the kids in there, but literally this school adult walked in, he looked at me and said, "Why are we smoking in here?" And I was like, I wasn't even smoking, I was just using the bathroom. But it's like every time I'm in the bathroom and like they always accuse me of smoking in the bathroom. And so this person feels targeted. This is a young man. And this is a photo not necessarily representing this quote, but one of the students submitted that to show kind of how she felt isolated in her schooling experience. And there were other stories, multiple stories, but another student feeling like he didn't have the reputation to do student government and they didn't choose him because he had a reputation. So what's an example with racist experience with peers? There was an overwhelming, pervasive use of the N-word from everybody. They just felt super isolated hearing it all the time. They felt like there was harassment, jokes, bullying, and name calling that were race related. And I can't read this full because I put the picture in front of it, but I know what it's about. So this person is saying that in the English classroom, there is one specific kid, he comes in, he's saying the N-word every single day, like multiple times, and the teacher hears it and is just like, oh, let's not use this language, and just moves on. And then she doesn't like, the student keeps saying it, and the teacher just keeps going and doesn't stop to correct it. And so this student feels pretty isolated hearing that and is feeling like targeted in this setting. And so this is a picture that one of the students put while she's in a classroom, someone's grabbing her hair to represent her experience. Okay, overall, they felt a general lack of support. And the examples I'm giving you, it's just literally one. I have so many examples. I haven't finished coding through the data, so I can't give you the numbers yet, but it's a lot. But they felt lack of support. Teachers weren't addressing racist actions when it was happening right in front of them. There was a lack of celebration and representation of Blackness, lack of recognition of Black history and curriculum and during Black History Month. They were facing academic challenges without having academic support. And they also felt like they had specific mental health challenges with no one to go to. And there were some challenges finding and connecting to the Black community. So one example of this, and this is difficult to read, but one young woman in the study, she said this crying, "I was called racial slurs that took the sense of my dignity and pride. My junior year, I couldn't sit a whole day in my physics class. I would be late. I tried to leave. I didn't want to sit there and hear what I was being told. By junior year, I couldn't walk into class while being called monkey, gorilla, cotton picker, all the names that you could even be called. In my junior year, I felt unsafe. This is unacceptable. You may be thinking, did I try telling my teacher? I did. But he told me that since he didn't see it and he didn't hear it, he couldn't report it." And so there was no safe place for students to go to, and they didn't even feel believed when when things were happening to them, because they would see these things happening to them in front of an adult and it wouldn't be addressed. And so this photo is from one of the students. It's a basketball game. It's representative of what happened at the basketball game incident I explained at the start of this talk. And then there's one little picture, and you can't really see what it says, but after that incident, the school posted this 8.5 by 11 paper that said, be respectful at these games, and they just felt like it wasn't enough. So on a positive note, they really did appreciate being in community with each other and having those opportunities. They were connected with the Black Student Union and a larger organization called the United Black Student Unions of California. And so they were happy to able to be together in certain affinity groups to be able to share these experiences and not feel like they were alone. And there was a positive example of when a teacher did address something. And she said, honestly, so a student said something that was like negatively around something racial. And she said the teacher actually addressed it with the student. And she said, honestly, it made me happy because I never had a teacher do that. When it comes to people saying that, they would like brush it off or like, oh, it's okay. It's like they don't say it's okay, but they just do a quick little look and then they move on. It made me feel appreciated when the teacher acknowledged it. It made me feel a little bit seen. And so our students who just want to be seen and want to be acknowledged, and want to feel that sense of respect and dignity. So getting to the end, implications overall, there was a glaring lack of safety for Black students. And there's a framework from Dr. Eliana C. Edwards that she calls an intersectional ecological framework for defining school safety for Black students. And she talks about safety and she says, most conceptions of school safety are inconsistent with a long history of research on the myriad of ways that Black students are harmed by institutional racism in school. Deficit notions about Black students, denigrating curriculum and pedagogy, discriminatory policies and practices, and racist social and linguistic norms are just a few aspects of school climate that regularly threaten Black student safety. And so students aren't feeling safe socially, emotionally, interpersonally, academically, physically. And so we often think of safety as a color evasive, colorblind type of thing. And she's helping to frame safety that is race conscious, particularly for Black students, that we found helpful to apply to this study. So the students did come up with recommendations, continued support for Black students in these different opportunities, like the group that we did, they found it really helpful, professional development for teachers, training for those situations I had mentioned, just for racism from students to be addressed, support for student athletes and extracurricular activities, representation and celebration of Black history and culture, academic, mental, and health support, and sanctuary spaces and people to go to. So because this is an action research project, what actually happened? In May of 2024, because this was 23-24, we had this community presentation. The superintendent was there and some other school officials and teachers and principals showed up, community members, and they shared the presentation and they listened and they felt really good sharing that. But then the following fall, we decided to keep the project going and we got more funding. And the students were kind of feeling like nothing happened, like they wanted to feel heard. So we ended up compiling this in a report and sending the letter out to the superintendent and the school board, and then making a public comment at a school board meeting, which happened a couple months ago. And I can't say that they were happy to receive that report, but I will say that we're now meeting with the school district leadership, including the superintendent, around the recommendations and around what Black students were experiencing in this study. And yeah, also I'm bringing a group of these students to AERA, to the AERA Ready program, so that they can share their research with other students and researchers across the country. And the work still continues. It's not over. We'll see how it goes. So I'm going to stop there. There's more I could say, but I'm going to stop.